And we come now to 22 hours 30 Universal Time. In the news at this hour, the head of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has promised open war against Israel. Hassan Nasrallah spoke after he survived an Israeli airstrike on his home and office in Beirut. He also praised an attack on an Israeli naval ship off the Lebanese coast. An Israeli spokesman says the ship was not heavily damaged, but the Arab television station, Al Jazeera, says the Israeli military is searching for 4 missing people from the ship. Lebanese officials say more than 60 people have been killed in the Israeli offensive. Israel says 8 of its soldiers and 4 Israeli civilians have died in Hezbollah rocket attacks since Wednesday. In Washington, the American State Department is urging Americans to consider leaving Lebanon. Palestinian militants have exploded a hole through a wall at the border between Gaza and Egypt. Hundreds of people crossed into Gaza through the hole. Israel had kept the border crossing mostly closed since late last month to stop Palestinian rocket attacks from Gaza and to gain release of 2 kidnapped Israeli soldiers. Earlier on Friday, thousands of Palestinians demonstrated in the Gaza Strip to show support for Hezbollah guerrillas in Lebanon. They demonstrated as Israel launched more attacks in Gaza and in Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes damaged a main road and an office building in Gaza. A Palestinian was killed when an Israeli tank shell hit his vehicle. Israeli tanks withdrew from central Gaza on Friday. The Israeli military says forces in Gaza had completed their operations. Lebanon has accused Israel of extreme aggression. It urged the United Nations Security Council to act immediately to stop the Israeli attacks. The Council held an emergency meeting on Friday to discuss the increasing violence in the Middle East. Israel's ambassador to the UN defended his country by saying Israel has been the target of repeated Hezbollah attacks. He said Israel was answering an act of war by Lebanon. The United States ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, said Syria and Iran were to blame for supporting the Hezbollah group. American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is to travel to several Asian nations later this month to meet with top government officials. A spokesman says she will visit China, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, and Vietnam. Ms. Rice is expected to discuss Asian and global issues, including the situations in North Korea, Iraq, and Iran. The American Secretary of State also plans to attend meetings related to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. ASEAN will hold its yearly conference in Kuala Lumpur on July 27th and 28th. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. Police in Pakistan have used tear gas to break up crowds of Shiites in Karachi. Demonstrators protested the killing of a top Shiite clergyman. Allama Hassan Turabi died of wounds after a bombing near his home in Karachi. Officials say a relative of Mr. Turabi and the bomber also died in the explosion. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Karachi city officials deployed police and other forces to prevent religious violence, but hundreds of Shiites went into the streets. Mr. Turabi escaped an earlier attempt to kill him in April. Peace talks between the government of Uganda and the rebel Lord's Resistance Army have begun. The talks are being held in Juba, Sudan. Top rebel leaders Joseph Kony and Vincent Otti have refused to attend the talks. They say they are concerned about security. The International Criminal Court has ordered the arrest of the two rebel leaders. They are charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity. The Vice President of the area government in southern Sudan, Riek Machar, is helping negotiate the peace talks. Colombian officials say rebels have killed 10 people and kidnapped 170 others in Choco province. The northern area is near the border with Panama. Officials say the military now is in the area investigating the crimes. They suspect the rebel Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia is responsible. The group is also known as FARC. And a former American intelligence agent and her husband have brought legal action against Vice President Dick Cheney and other officials. Valerie Plame Wilson and former Ambassador Joseph Wilson talked to reporters in Washington on Friday. The two claim that Mrs. Wilson lost her ability to work secretly for the Central Intelligence Agency. They say this happened because Bush administration officials told reporters that she was a CIA agent. Mr. Wilson accuses the officials of trying to punish him for criticizing the administration. And so, briefly now, here again is the major news of this hour. The head of the Lebanese militant group, Hezbollah, has promised open war against Israel. Palestinian militants have exploded a hole through a wall at the border between Gaza and Egypt, letting hundreds of people pass through. And American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is to travel to several Asian nations later this month to meet with top government officials. So ends the news in VOA Special English.